Hey guys, it's Eggwick, and today we're looking at Valorant's newest agent, Fade. She's an initiator from Turkey, and she's honestly super edgy, but yeah, if you guys like this content, please consider subscribing to the channel. So, Fade has been a highly anticipated agent, especially lore-wise. I think she's the most lore-heavy agent we've gotten, and I really like how her kit plays together with her whole theme of fear. Now, let me give you a brief overview of her abilities, strengths, and how I think she's going to affect the meta and dominate games. Fade's signature ability is called Haunt. Fade throws an orb that lands on the ground and reveals enemies in a radius. Not only that, but it also marks enemies. Marked targets leave a trail behind, but we'll get back to that in a sec. You can also break the eye, much like Reyna's. Fade's Q is called Seize. Fade throws an orb, and after a brief delay, enemies caught within the radius are tethered. It also applies decay and blocks out your map. If you're tethered, it means you can't escape that radius, and unlike Haunt, this cannot be broken. A lot of people were saying that this ability looks really strong at stopping pushes, but I don't think it's as strong as people say it is. Unlike a Sage Slow or an Astra Suck, you need to time the activation of Seize in order for it to tether enemies. Otherwise, it will just disappear, whereas a Sage Slow or Astra Suck will activate regardless. But also, you can smoke off the ability and it will not tether you. Basically, as long as you're not in line of sight, you're fine. However, this ability does seem very strong on attack, when coupled with other abilities like shock darts or even a raised nade, seeing as though if it hits, you won't be able to escape. Fade's C ability is called Prowler. Fade sends out a creature that can be controlled by moving your mouse, much like a Sky Flash or Dog. Once an enemy comes into detection range, it then locks on, much like a raised boombot. But here's the catch. If an enemy is marked and leaves a trail, the Prowler can then latch onto the trail and it moves at twice the speed to track onto the enemy. If you're hit by the Prowler, then you're nearsighted for 3 seconds, and Prowlers can also be shot much like any other ability. Fade's ultimate is called Nightfall. It's basically a breach ult, but instead of knocking up and stunning, it decays the enemy, blocks out the map, and also marks them, which means that trails will start showing. Now, from the looks of it, Fade's kit does seem pretty interesting. It honestly looks pretty loaded in terms of the debuffs compared to any other agent, but as far as I know, she's the only one that has conditional effects based on her other abilities. That said, I feel like she isn't as difficult as the rest of the roster. The eye seems fairly generous with its range, and even without the trails, Fade can still get some pretty good value out of her Prowler. Her gameplay loop feels like a mix of Sova and Sky, where you'd throw the eye into sight or onto a good vantage point to reveal and mark enemies, check if anyone is in a bad spot, and then line up your tether to allow teammates to peek or use utility to deal damage, and lastly, use your Prowler for some additional pressure. Alternatively, you can also use one charge of Prowler to check if anyone is near a corner or something like that, which makes her pretty versatile in the ways she can use her utility or combo them together. Honestly, it seems like the devs at Riot tried to make her as scary or pressuring as possible, which, they've done a very good job of doing so. This also seems exacerbated by the amount of debuffs she has, and it's honestly pretty scary to think about being tracked and having a 2x speed Prowler after you. However, I do think that she won't be too strong, especially at the start. Her kit reminds me a bit of Sky, and I remember that a lot of players kinda wrote her off at the beginning. There needs to be a bit more time before people figure out the optimal way to play her, and while I do see her being strong in solo queue, I do think that she's going to be a menace in pro play, where games and matches are a lot more structured. Anyway, what do you guys think about Fade? Do you like her? Do you hate her? Do you think her abilities are good for the game? And yeah, will you guys be playing Fade? Anyway, that's it for this vid, and thanks so much for 200 something subscribers. Anyway, this is Eggwick, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.